Thank you for tuning in to today's podcast, brought to you by the Center for Entrepreneurs at Corporate College. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe, rate, and share with fellow entrepreneurs. Tune back in to stay connected with us for more insights and resources to help you build, innovate, and thrive.
Hello and welcome to Speaking of Entrepreneurship podcast at Corporate College. I'm your host, Dr. Michael Baston, president of Cuyahoga Community College, and I'm thrilled to welcome Beth Hammack, the president of the Federal Reserve Bank of Cleveland. Beth, so happy to have you with us today.
I'm thrilled to be here.
You joined the Federal Reserve Bank of Cleveland last August, bringing more than 30 years of experience in finance, capital markets, and risk management. So tell me, what exactly do you do?
Well, thank you so much for having me, Dr. Baston. It's great to be here, and it's great to honor the 20th anniversary of Corporate College. It's really spectacular. What I'd spent my time in the private sector was really working in finance, and I'd worked across a bunch of different areas. I focused on interest rates and making markets and interest rates to provide investment opportunities to pensions, insurance companies, individuals, corporations. I spent time as our treasurer, which I explained to my children as I signed the checks, because that was what they could understand. But it was really thinking about the planning and how do we finance the organization itself. And then my last role was spent working with corporations to help them find financing opportunities and to think about what was the right channel for them. But the reason I was interested in joining the Federal Reserve was that I had spent some time during my career on a couple of committees, one for the Department of Treasury, one for the New York Fed. And so I got to see up close how policymakers think about the role they play and the work that they do. And it became interesting to me at that point that as a market participant, I spent a lot of time thinking about what the Fed would do. And as a policymaker, I spend all my time thinking about what the Fed should do. So for me, in those conversations, being at those committees, I started to be more interested in the should than the would. And now I've come full circle over to that side of it.
Oh, that's phenomenal.
Yeah.
I recently was at an event that you all had.
Our policy summit.
The policy summit, which was extraordinary.
Thank you.
And I watched you talk to participants and listen to their points of view of how the country could get stronger and better. What is it like to actually work with the real people whose lives are being impacted every day?
Yeah, it's a critically important part of my job. And fortunately, it's also one of my favorite parts of the job, is going out and talking to businesses, talking to individuals, understanding how the economy is affecting them. Because when I go to set policy in Washington, what's important is I look at all the data and understand what the numbers are saying. But you have to put a human face and a human voice to that. So being out in the community, hearing how individuals are experiencing it, hearing the pain of high inflation, hearing how difficult it is to make your paycheck stretch, hearing from business owners about their inability to find workers or to keep workers or having workers jump because they can get an extra 50 cents or $1 in their earnings. All of those challenges are what make up how our economy is performing. And our mission at the Fed is to make sure the economy is performing for everyone.
That's so awesome. I mean, because we really do need to have stable families and stable communities, but it does take leadership. So tell me a little bit about, because of this extraordinary career, sort of what do you think about the need for good leadership in this season as we continue to help families move forward?
Yeah, I think good leadership is always important. It's critical to have someone at the top of an organization who has vision, who has compassion, who's clear and direct, and who's trustworthy. And I think you build that in lots of small ways over time. But I think leadership is really around getting an organization to believe in your vision and to help execute that vision and make sure that you can have the biggest impact possible.
One of the things that impressed me about the Policy Summit is that you had students who are actually interning and they were able to participate as well. They were able to learn. So what advice would you give students to prepare themselves for a career, for example, at the Federal Reserve?
Well, I love it when the interns come in this season because they bring such energy and such a fresh perspective on everything that we do. What I think is really important for interns and for anyone who's just starting out in the workforce is to ask lots of questions, be curious. Just really make sure that you can be that annoying person, and sometimes it is annoying to seasoned professionals to have someone asking lots and lots of questions, but that's how you learn. And I found throughout my career that the people who are really just trying to take a different perspective and trying to understand how things work are the ones who are really capable of the most change and the most impact over time.
I love that. You know, how does the Federal Reserve Bank impact local communities? Because I think about sort of the students that I was listening to and how passionate they were about doing the work. So how do you see your work as really impacting the local community?
Yeah, we have impact hopefully on the national level in the policy setting space, but also on the local level around the community development work that we do. So our teams, our community development team, who hosted the policy summit and put on that event, spend a lot of time with organizations in Cleveland, in Cincinnati, in Columbus, Toledo, Worcester, name your favorite small town in parts of Pennsylvania, Kentucky, and West Virginia, where we are as well, really understanding those communities and trying to understand what some of the common problems are. So there are three main areas that we focus on, which are around workforce development, housing affordability, and small businesses. And so we really try to understand what are the barriers that are keeping people out of the workforce and how have different organizations solved those problems. So one place that we went to visit, well, two actually. One was the food bank the Greater Food Bank in Cleveland, looking at their community resource model, where they try to do all these wraparound services and provide that availability. And then we were also at a place in Cincinnati called the Brighton Center, which had a similar model, focused more on workforce development, but they also, within that, looked at housing, looked at childcare, looked at nutrition and food security, and tried to bring that all together. And so I think our role at the Cleveland Fed is not, we don't fund these organizations, we don't directly support them, but we do provide research, analysis, and data to see what's working and hopefully amplify those trends. So centers like the Greater Cleveland Food Bank Community Resource Center or the Brighton Center, those types of models, if they're working, can get multiplied and amplified throughout the district and the country.
And we use a lot of your research at our institution.
That's great to hear.
We see ourselves as really advancing economic mobility for our people. We use education as the vehicle, but it really is to an end that provides the kind of sustainability for people. We don't want families to just have a family sustaining wage. We want them to have a family thriving wage because we believe that, in fact, sustaining is great. If you're the duck, you can see the duck above the water, but you don't really recognize what has to happen under the water to be sustained. We really want families to thrive. And it seems like the research that you all are engaged in helps inform organizations like us how we can better participate in this work. So what do you think about the partnering and the utilization of the research and how that's being helpful to organizations like the college?
Yeah, I think it's fantastic. I mean, that's one of our goals, is to make sure that the work that we're doing is impactful and that it can be used to help everyone find new opportunities and thrive. I love the way that you say that, not just survive, but really thrive in their opportunities. And so partnerships that we have with community colleges like Tri-C, thinking about these workforce development issues, thinking about the training that needs to happen. How do we get people who want to have great jobs and employers who need good employees? How do we get those two groups together to find the most opportunity for everyone?
I just think that's so awesome. And what I also love is the idea of the work of entrepreneurship as part of a potential pathway for folks. Last year, we introduced the Center for Entrepreneurs here, and we really aimed at equipping entrepreneurs and small businesses with lots of tools so that they could be successful. So in what ways do you see small businesses influencing and contributing to local economies? Because I think that's something that you talked about earlier in your speech.
I did. Yeah. I mean, small businesses are big business. They're 40% of GDP. It's a large share of the new jobs that are being created on net. And so small businesses are really the engine. They're one of the key economic engines for the United States and for our growth. But they're difficult. I grew up, my father was a professor, an entrepreneurship professor at the University of Pennsylvania. And so I spent a lot of time around founders and people who are starting their own businesses. And it can be incredibly rewarding. It can be incredibly valuable, give a lot of independence and autonomy, but it can be really tough. There's a lot of uncertainty and not every business makes it. And so it can be challenging. But I think for those who are really committed and who figure out how to make things work and have all the magical stars align, whether it's the funding, the client base, the insights, I think it can be a really great generator of both individual income and security and also jobs for the community.
It's so interesting. When I first came to the college, I had a study commissioned to look at the gig workers and the gig economy, because what we found in the pandemic was so many young people decided they didn't want to be workforce developed. They actually wanted to have the option of whether they were going to be employees or employers.
Right.
Or entrepreneurs. And so through entrepreneurship. So we really found that this newer generation, many of them have these entrepreneurial desires. And it's not just DoorDash and Uber Eats, but it really is a whole plethora of opportunities. How do you think younger people today, based on your sort of sense of the lay of the land, how they're engaging in entrepreneurship in a new way?
Well, it's interesting. I mean, you talk about the gig economy, and I do think that that provides a lot of opportunities for flexibility. And one of the things that we hear most frequently, certainly from our younger employees at the Federal Reserve, is this desire for flexibility and their interest in making sure they've got a long-term pathway, but that they can also add other passions and other needs around and outside that. And so I think some of these new parts of the economy that have opened up are providing those type of venues.
Now, how are community colleges important to you?
Community colleges are critically important because they do provide an opportunity for people to get a pathway into work. I think the earn and learn models are really tremendous. And I recognize that, a 4-year college degree is great, but it's very expensive. And what we're seeing even today, and what we heard at our Policy Summit Fed Listens event, was that students who are graduating with these 4-year degrees are not guaranteed of having jobs on the other side of it. And so community colleges provide, I think, a great opportunity to get educated, to get certificates, to get specific skills, soft skills, in addition to the hard skills, right, which we hear are really important. That's one of the things when we look at the tools and the research that we have. We do hear that employers are really focused on the soft skills. Can you show up on time? Are you committed? Do you know what it's like to be reliable? Are you courteous? Do you know how to ask good questions? All of those things that are soft skills are critically important to long-term success in the workforce. And so it's great to see that places like Tri-C are investing in those parts in addition to the technical skills that students need to have.
Now, a wide variety of people are going to listen to this podcast. And so I'm going to ask you a question that seems maybe odd, but it would probably be very of interest to so many people. If you could go back to and I know you're only 19, but if you could go back to your 18-year-old self.
Last year.
And give that person a piece of advice, whether it be about thinking about their career or their future, what kinds of things would you say to your 18-year-old self?
That's a great question. I think what's important to remember is that anything is possible. Life is long, and you never quite know where things are going to go. Be open to opportunity and be willing to try things. My career path was not linear. It's not a ladder. It's a jungle gym, right? You're kind of climbing all over the place, and hopefully you make it to where you want to go. But there are lots of experiences that you collect along the way that you might not realize will have value, and you might not see the direct payoff in a year or two. But the fact that you've had this variety of experience will, over time, allow you to have much more impact, have much more reach, better understanding of how things work. So I'd say be open to opportunity.
I love that. And I think that, that is such a powerful message, regardless of what age or stage you are in your career. Because as we see, things are changing so fast. I mean, who would have thought that we would go from a real we're looking for pensionable positions that you'll stay at 40 years in an office downtown,
right,
9 to 5 in a cubicle. And that is not the traditional way people are navigating the experience today, but many are more open to possibilities. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. I think so. And it's great to see that because I think it's important. Like, the environment changes. I think about the first job that I ever had was working at a video rental store. If that was my only career, I would be out of a job a long time ago. So it's important to stay on top of trends and to see how the economy is developing, how the markets are developing, and where businesses are going to take you.
And as you think about entrepreneurs specifically, is there any final thoughts that you might have or advice that you might have for those who are navigating the entrepreneurial and small business journey? Things that could encourage them, knowing that, as you just mentioned, there is a lot of uncertainty and things are always changing. And, the only thing that's constant is change. So do you have any advice for them?
Yeah, my advice would really be to embrace grit and resilience. I think being an entrepreneur and starting your own business can be an incredibly challenging exercise. But for the people who see it through and have that grit and resilience and are able to stick with it and find success, I think it's tremendously rewarding for both them and their communities. So I would say embrace that grit and resilience and use your communities, use the people around you, use your local community banks to help fund you, use mentors that you find, use the community colleges to help you find the workforce that you need to get the skills that you need to help make your business grow.
You are so amazing. We are so happy to have you leading the Fed and really such an active voice in our community. I am just so pleased to see how you connect with people. As I said, I was at this event and I watched and I listened how you were open to questions and you spent time. Some people, not others, but not you, but some people kind of bypass people. You didn't do that. You stayed, you listened, you were interested in how people feel, and that makes all the difference in the world.
Well, thanks so much for having me. I mean, to me, that's the important part of the job is to understand how the economy is working for everyone. So it really is the best part of my day when I can talk to someone and just hear little bits of how things are working for them so that I can make sure that we're delivering on our mission for the public.
Oh, you're awesome. We are so happy that you have been with us. And to our listeners, thank you for tuning into this episode. Now, don't forget to subscribe to our podcast for more insightful discussions. And if you want more information about entrepreneurial opportunities, visit corporatecollege.com/entrepreneurs. What a wonderful time. Thank you for this episode of Speaking of Entrepreneurship with our very own Beth Hammack. Thank you so much.
Thank you for tuning in to today's podcast, brought to you by the Center for Entrepreneurs at Corporate College. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe, rate, and share with fellow entrepreneurs. Tune back in to stay connected with us for more insights and resources to help you build, innovate, and thrive.